It's the weekend and you have financial questions that need answering. That can only mean one thing. It's time for Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome, welcome. It's the first show of October. Ooh, spooky. Not a big fan of Halloween. Got to just say it right there. Never was, not even as a child. I didn't get it. I really didn't. Really, it wasn't. And Mark, what was the best costume you ever had as a child? Never did, huh? Oh, military themed. All right. Well, let me tell you, I dressed up as a New York Metropolitan baseball player for many years. That because I just wanted to be one, and did not really understand. I think till like maybe third or fourth grade that there were no girls in this sport. So it did get through finally. I didn't even play softball. I wanted to play baseball. All right. Now, we're not talking about this. It is Halloween. It is scary. It's the month of crashes. I'm not predicting one. It is the program that takes the mystery out of your financial life. And we are broadcasting live from the Capital One studios. Capital One, what's in your wallet? That's what they ask. I always like to know what's in my wallet, by the way. Mark, I know this is not going to surprise you, but I compulsively make sure that my dollar bills are in the correct order and facing the exact same direction. Mark also does the exact same thing. So, with that said, let us relieve you of hearing more about our crazy OCD tendencies and go to our first caller. It is Pete from Pennsylvania. Hello, Pete. Welcome to the program. What can we do for you?
Good morning, Jill. How are you?
Great.
Wanted some guidance on my retirement plan to see if I'm on track and just some questions on my future retirement elections.
Okay, great. So tell us a little bit about you. How old are you?
I'm 55,
Okay. And are you married or single?
married, wife 51,
Okay. And kids?
2 kids out of the house, free, beautiful, loving it.
Yeah, I like that you say free. And are they financially independent of you?
Yes, they are.
You get an award. Ding, ding, ding. It's nice to hear that. That's great. Okay. So now let's find out a little bit more. First of all, what do you do for a living?
I work IT and healthcare.
Okay.
My wife works for the federal government.
Okay. How much do you make?
I make about $134 a year. My wife makes around 42.
Okay. And you guys are putting money into your retirement plans?
Yep. I have a 403B. I have about 490 in there.
Uh-huh.
My wife's got about 25 in some IRAs. And then I was saving 10%. Now I bumped it up this year to 20%.
Good.
And my wife's saving about 5%.
Okay.
And on the 403, I'm now doing the second 10%. I'm doing that as a Roth.
Okay, great. That's good. So half traditional, half Roth. And is there any money in the Roth yet? When you said that 490, is that mostly pre-tax?
It's mostly pre-tax. Just started this year, so
great.
95% pre-tax.
Okay, fantastic. So when you guys do retire, are either of you entitled to a pension?
Yes, I'm entitled to a pension, which I calculate out will be about $4,500 a month at 65.
Fantastic. And what about your wife?
Sure, I just have like $4,000 a year or something small.
Okay.
She hasn't been there long enough.
All right. No, it's a little something.
Yeah,
We'll take
something.
it, right? Come on. Okay. Yeah. Now, what do you think you need in terms of the basic retirement income? What do you think you really are, be realistic. Don't make it a lowball number. Make it a real number.
I would say, for example, I figured out that my last year's expenses, to take out my mortgage payments, was around $70,000, give or take.
Okay, you took out without the mortgage.
Yeah.
Is that because the mortgage is going to be paid off?
Yeah, house will be paid off in 5 years.
Okay, got it. House paid off in 5. Great. Will you both be, I bet, is she entitled to Social Security, or does she have that weird thing because she's a federal government worker?
Yeah, we're both entitled to Social Security. I figure My Social Security will be around $3,000 when I'm 67. Hers is around $1,600, but I'll probably go up over the next 2 years.
Okay. But I mean, it's kind of cool because let's say your combined pensions, which is about $4,800 a month, right?
Right.
Then $3,000, $4,000, $8,800. Let's just say it's $9,000 a month of income.
Right.
And I know you have to pay tax on that, but still, that's pretty good. So this is fantastic. All right. What is tell me like kind of what you're thinking about. Are you thinking about working for 10 more years, or how do you feel like this is going to go down?
Ideally maybe 62, but if I...
What? Why are you doing 62? You just told me all those great numbers at 65.
I don't know. I don't know if I can tough it out 10 more years. I'm not sure.
Oh, don't think of it as 10. Just go 1 year at a time. All right? Come on.
Okay.
Do you hate what you do? Really?
No, I don't hate it, but it's been a long time.
I don't want to like call you out, but I'm 55-ish almost. And it's a long time of like just life. But you have a long time of retirement ahead of you. That's the problem.
That's what I'm saying. I say 62 now. It could be easily 65.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have, besides the actual, like the house is going to be paid off, is there anything else that's outstanding that you think is going to come up that you need to have money set aside for? Like you said, you've got kids, they're out of the house. Are they married? Are there grandchildren? Or is there anything else that's out there that you have to think about?
Nothing I can really think of. There's no other debt. 100% clear. I do have about a little over 100,000 either cash or CDs or savings. Is kind of
that's great.
Emergency.
That's fantastic. Okay, and in terms of, let's just talk about 62 for a second. So if it were 62, how would you do the 3 years between 62 and Medicare? 65.
Now, for one good thing is I could go on my wife's health insurance.
Right.
Younger,
I see that. Right. Okay.
Yeah, and the federal government offers that option, so I have that gap sort of, as long as she stays employed in the government and considering, political changes and all that good stuff,
Right.
Hopefully I have health care covered for the gap.
Right.
Then the only difference would be the difference in income, and probably to do that, I guess the only option really is take it out of the 403 earlier rather than tap out the pension earlier or tap out the Social Security earlier.
Okay, I got you.
I don't want to give away that free money.
I know. It's so tantalizing. But I know if you're like, well, I'm done. All right, let's do this. Let's go to a quick break. We'll come back and we'll get back to like the 62 if it's realistic or not. And it was, probably worth talking about what your general asset allocation looks like, okay? So how about that? Do that. All right? Mark, is that good for you? That's good for me. You're listening to Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, you want to walk through some of your retirement options like Pete in Pennsylvania, give us a holler. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
Back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger helps you take the mystery out of your finances.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Really, it's so easy. Fantastic. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. That is our email address. Also, if you are on our website, which is jillonmoney.com, contact button, upper right-hand corner. Pretty easy. Come on. All right. We were talking to our pal Pete in Pennsylvania, who's 55, his wife's 51. Kids are gone, doing their thing. Fantastic. They make good chunk of money, saved a bunch of money, and both have pensions. So, Pete, the big question is really whether 62 is feasible for you. And I mean, I know 65 is going to be a cakewalk. I really do. Because the pension amount is at 65, as you said, the pension plus like even Social Security a couple years later, that's going to cover most of your needs. Here's the problem with 62 as I see it. First of all, you're going to have a permanent reduction in your Social Security check, which I don't love. Permanent sounds, how shall we say, too permanent for me. And also, I think you're going to be forced to take more money out of that 403B sooner than you would like. So I really am, I would keep your head on straight. If it's miserable and horrible and you had to do it, sure. But given that you have the choice, I really think that 65 is going to work better for you. But the next step is tell me about the allocation of the money that you have invested and how you're doing and what are you planning right now?
Well, currently the most of the mix is 65% the mixture of U.S. equity, about 27% taxable bonds, and the rest is international equity.
Okay. So it's like a 70-30-ish kind of portfolio. Right. I mean, it's fine. How do you do with the ups and downs? You're okay with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's been, I think of 5 years, I've been around 8%, 3 years, 9. Of course, this year's been looking better.
How about last year when the markets were down?
It was a little under 6 points, 6%.
I mean, I don't think you have to be 70-30. I mean, this is just me. I would say that you probably could pull that back a little bit just in terms of risk. Because I don't know if you need to have that much risk. I mean, you sort of have done the hard work already. And I think you might be better off simply pulling back the risk and having a little less of an upside. You don't need the upside. Your job right now is to preserve what you have, right? Yep. And I think that really makes it, I think that's really what I would suggest. Now, you may say, forget it, I don't care, fine. But I would just pull the risk back. And other than that, I think that you're doing a great job. I love the idea that you are putting more money into the Roth. I think that's fantastic. And I think that if you can if you can sort of temper your sights instead of saying, oh my God, it's 10 more years, just like be here today, just like enjoy what you do. You got a pile of money. If something happened and you really hated it, fine. But like you really are on track to do what you need to do. And you're very lucky in that respect. I mean, you've done a great job and you're very smart about it. But truly, I think that a lot of people, like when you feel like you're so close, you might be tempted to go out early. When I was writing my book and I went talked to a lot of different investment advisors and I said, hey, what's the biggest retirement mistake people make? And almost every single one of them came back and said, when I have a client who's just on the cusp of really being able to like hit it out of the park and reach their goals, they kind of pull the rug out from under me and they say, I want to retire early. And so I think you don't want to do that to yourself. You've got just a great situation that you've both created. I would play that out. And you know what? Hey, if all of a sudden, by the way, you're at 62 and you're like, hey, my money has grown so much, I can afford to retire early, that's great. But I wouldn't plan on it. Okay?
No, makes sense. It's kind of a thing to have options if I really have to. But
yeah. I love options. Okay? I love options.
One quick question.
Sure.
Question on the change in the mix. Would you move anything around of current holdings or just change future contributions? I
would do current. I really would. I would do current and future.
Okay.
So
like a 50-50 split maybe, something like that? Or a little,
64.
I'm conservative at heart, so I'm with you.
Yeah. I mean, I would start maybe go 60-40, and then maybe by the end of the year, you just do a little bit like, now here it is, do some today. If you feel like you want to like do a little bit more after the first of the year, that's fine. But 60-40 and then eventually like over the next few years get to 50-50, fine.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks for the advice.
Hey, my pleasure. Good luck to you. All right. Another happy person that we can help out. I love that. That's fantastic. All right, so if you want to get on the air with us, all you have to do is send us an email. Sometimes you just send us emails anyway, which is great. So here is a note from Gigi. who's 63. She retired when she was 60. I have a small inflation index pension, $22,500 a year. I've been living on that plus savings for the past 3 years. I was planning on taking Social Security at my full retirement age, which is 66 and 4 months. But now I am reconsidering. I had planned on withdrawing retirement accounts on an as-needed basis for trips to Europe or redecorating my home. I would probably never withdraw more than 4% a year, even if there were years when I withdrew nothing. I own my house free and clear. I'm living on about $15,000 per year of savings plus the pension money. I'm also giving $12,000 a year to my daughter, who's in medical school and racking up huge student loans. It will end in 18 months. I still have about $78,000 in bank accounts and CDs. I also have $95,000 in a Vanguard non-qualified brokerage account, $200,000 in a Roth IRA, and $700,000 in a pre-tax IRA. Mark, would you call that burying the lead that I have $1 million saved? Kind of, a little bit in our industry. Okay, she's been converting money to the Roth for the past few years. Should I reconsider taking Social Security at my full retirement age and instead wait until 70? It would mean I would need to withdraw from investments to make up for the Social Security because I'm tired on living on such a tight budget. So the difference is $2,400 a month up to $3,100 a month. My thoughts are that it would be better to wait so I can benefit from the guaranteed return on Social Security and I could continue the Roth conversions, blah, blah, blah. What do you think? This is an interesting one. Okay. I think that you have to, this is what I think. I think, yes, I would wait till 70 as long as you promise me you will not die until you're after 83. No, I'm just kidding. There is like a cutoff that if you're in good health, okay, then you probably should wait. And here's what else I would do. So you're going to be spending down the money that's in this bank account, right? $78,000 in CDs. What I would do almost immediately if I were going to wait is I would take that non-qualified brokerage account and I would start to peel it off and start to sell some and replenish. Because what you're going to end up finding is that you are starting to kind of plow through all of your non-retirement assets. So here's what I would do. The $12,000 a year to your daughter, gift that from your Vanguard account. Gift it to her from the Vanguard account. Gift a highly appreciated security and let her pay. You can help her with the tax, but let her pay the tax because she's probably in like a 0% tax bracket. So that's first of all. So for the remaining amount of time you're going to give her money, do it in a chunk and do it from the Vanguard non-qualified account. But do make sure you've got plenty of money in that cash account. So while you're waiting for this 70-year-old bench milestone to come about, you want to make sure you've got plenty of money in the bank and you're not subject to the swings of the market. So do that first and try to avoid pulling money out of the deferred tax account, okay? So that's that. There we go. Another happy contestant here on the Jill on Money show. Gigi, thanks for writing. If you have a financial question, please send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
Back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger helps you take the mystery out of your finances.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. Hope you are enjoying the beginning of the autumn season. We are here to take the mystery out of your financial life. One of the great ways you can do that is to go to our website, jillonmoney.com. You can listen to past shows, or maybe if you've missed any part of this one, you can read articles, you can watch television appearances. We have a great resource section, and we've got a free weekly newsletter. Mark, how's the newsletter doing? We getting subscriptions still? Yeah, good. I happened to see somebody say, like, on another financial website, that they said, oh, we've got 19,000 subscriptions. I'm like, we got more than that. I don't don't need to. How do you advertise that? Don't you think it seems a little bit bush? Tiny bit? I don't know. Anyway, sign up for our free weekly newsletter. We have tens of thousands of subscribers just like you. And it goes out on Fridays. Okay, what else do we have? Let's do some emails. This is really interesting. Remember way back, when did that interview air, the fire interview? Was that on the podcast or on the radio show? It was on the podcast, I think. Okay, so we have a sister podcast. It's called Jill on Money, and you can get it anywhere you find your podcasts. So that means Apple, Stitcher, radio.com, Google Play. You can also go to our website. We have links to everything. But we had an interview with two young married kids, they were in their 30s, who were adherents of the FIRE movement, Financial Independence, Retire Early. And LC, period C, those are the, not Elsie, but LC wrote in and he said, okay, Jill, I really enjoyed the interview with those two young kids that wrote the FIRE book. I'm 63. I don't really qualify for FIRE, but I've been to this rodeo before. They're young, childless, and have high ideals. And I honestly admire their passion. Just so everyone understands, FIRE is this Financial Independence, Retire Early is essentially a movement that is predicated on this idea that you can sock away a ton of money when you're really young and then be able to be financially independent and perhaps retire early or perhaps have other things available to you in your life. Okay. I also enjoyed their creative explanations of how they would handle educating future children's sense of identity and sense of community. Then ... But ... They said they're living on $35,000 per year, 3.5% of $1 million portfolio. I think they have 1.3 now. And he says, really? Even before taxes, that breaks down to $100. He says $95.89 a day. Oh, let's just call it $95 a day. How in the world are they able to constantly travel globally, stay in Airbnbs, afford transportation and meals? The other question that was not asked was, how do you pay for your healthcare expenses? They are young. They're probably blessed with perfect health. But that will change over time. One major health crisis could wipe out their whole portfolio in quick order. Are they self-insured and just take risks, or insured via the Affordable Care Act? There is no N-O capital way that a couple can do everything they do on $95 a day without mooching off of family and friends or living in a car, which they apparently do not own. I thought about the deal about having all their belongings in backpacks was pretty amusing as well. I could maybe see this scenario working with a much larger portfolio for backup, but these numbers don't add up. Am I missing something? I don't think so. I thought that was interesting as well. I think that, I don't know, I actually think that they are really, there's something missing on that. And I think you've actually isolated it. So we should follow up with them. Why don't we forward that email to Christy and Bryce and see if they'll speak to the numbers? Let's do that, Mark. We have their stuff. I think they're in Toronto now or wherever they live. Okay, Daniel writes, I'm a big fan of your book. Hey, guys, my book is called, this is a shameless plug, The Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money, 13 Ways to Right Your Financial Wrongs. So Daniel is a big fan of the book, and he's got the audiobook. He listens to it on his daily commute. My question, should I prioritize my disposable income on savings to build up my emergency fund, as you mentioned in the big three things, or should I allocate some of my leftover income to invest in stocks or bonds? Thank you. Here's my financial situation. I just graduated from college with a full-time job in downtown. No student loan, so that's good. And I have a fair amount of disposable income after paying my rent and other necessities. Okay, Daniel, I think you do a little bit of both. You got a lot of disposable income. So first of all, if you've got a job and you have a retirement plan, I want you to at least put in as much money as a match is offered. So if that's 6%, definitely do that. Or even just put 6% away, just for a good, healthy habit. Put the rest of the money in an emergency reserve fund. When the emergency reserve fund is at your 6 months of living expenses, 6 months to a year, then switch over and increase your retirement contribution. That's what you should do. And if I've missed anything, let me know, and thanks for buying the book. Eric writes and asks about asset allocation. I plan to work through the end of 2024. Isn't it weird to read that number? 2024. At which point my house will be paid off. I'll be 61 years old. I will draw a pension. I've done some retirement planning in terms of what I need and projecting what I will have. I've made assumptions about inflation, rate of return, all that jazz. I also planned out when I will draw down the money. In addition to the pension, I'll have Social Security, a traditional IRA, a Roth IRA, a 457 plan. I plan to wait until I'm 70 to collect Social Security. Based on my calculations, once I reach 70, my pension and Social Security should cover all my expenses. That's good. So from January 2025 to August 2033, I will need to draw down from other sources. I plan to draw down from the traditional IRA first. And I think that will last me until Social Security. My question for you is, how should I have that IRA money allocated today? What changes should I make to that allocation between now and January 2025? I mean, look, it's 19 now, so we got 6 years to go. So I think that probably you're still looking at a balanced portfolio. As you are approaching 2025, what I would say is you need to set aside in cash the amount of money you will need to live on. And that's how I would, if you said I need 40 grand from that retirement account, make sure that 40 grand is in cash. The rest can be balanced, and then you can tip the balance a little bit more away from risk. So 60% bonds, 40% stock, and the money you need in cash available. Hope that helps. You're listening to Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, you can find us at jillonmoney.com or just send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
.401ks, IRAs, refinancing, she covers it all. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. Hey, Mark, I think I need a stand-up desk in here. Don't you think? It's like the old rickety studio. All right, we'll talk to the bosses. He's pointing towards the bosses. If you'd like to get in touch with us, just send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Or if you're on the website, poking around our beautiful resource section, or perhaps signing up for our free weekly newsletter, whatever you're doing over there at jillonmoney.com, just click on the contact button, upper right corner. Justin writes, in 2010, our old house went to sheriff sale for lack of payment. Our credit is excellent again. Wow, that's 9 years later. But we are still paying the second mortgage. The account is with Fifth Third. We have talked with them several times about a partial payment to terminate the loan, but they are not willing to negotiate. Any recommendations? They're not willing to negotiate. Why not? Because you're paying it. I guess here's the only problem. You've now got your credit back up. Things are good. And so the way you negotiate with these guys is you stop paying. And then you actually are able to have a little bit of leverage. But if you're paying, they're not going to negotiate. The problem is for you, you don't really want, unless you had all the credit you need and you don't really have any issue around, essentially whether or not you need to borrow more money, you could do it. But I think you're going to just have to pay it. I'm sorry. Kayla. My name is Kayla. I'm single, 19-year-old mother of 2 beautiful girls. Man, girl, you got busy. 2 years old, ages 2 and 1 month. I've limited income, and I'm living free at my grandparents' house. I'm trying to save up money. I've got $1,000. Good for you. Steady income. I'm trying to figure out other business ventures. Anyway, my question. Do you think that saving up $10,000 and buying a house from the local auction in my hometown is my best option to start? Absolutely not. Do not do that. She's got a secured credit card helping to build credit. No. Here's what you need to do, okay? You listen to me, Kayla. I'm talking to you. Do not buy a house. You're going to save, and you're going to save as much money as your living expenses are right now, 6 months. So you probably don't have a ton of living expenses. And you're going to first do that. And you're going to track how much money you're spending. And then what you're going to do is that, with the hustle and bustle of what you're doing on the side, she's pretty much a gig worker. I really think you want to save as much money as possible. And your first step would be having, probably at least $5,000 or $10,000 in the bank. And that $10,000 is sacrosanct. You can't do anything with it. And after you've done that, you're going to give us a holler back, and we're going to see whether or not we need to do something else before you prepare to move out. Or maybe you're not even going to move out. Maybe you're going to stay at your grandparents', which is fine. In that case, we'll start you with a very simple IRA account, or Roth IRA account in your case. Take a deep breath, track where your money is going, and save up that money. And do not buy a home. Do not do that. Thank you for writing. Eric writes, my wife is 37. I'm 39. We've got a small family, 2 girls, 10 and 5. We rent currently $3,400 a month in an expensive neighborhood in San Diego. We've got good jobs with steady incomes, about $215,000 a year. Our challenge, prioritizing where to put our money. We're comfortable in our neighborhood, but we can't afford to buy a home here. We would probably have to disrupt our kids' education to move to a more affordable neighborhood. Meanwhile, we're saving for retirement. I think we could do more. We've got a significant amount in student loan debt, but although it is a low interest rate. We're contributing $75 a month into a 529 plan for each of our kids. My wife's thinking of starting her own business. That would require saving for a gap in income. We've got a lot going on here, Mark. Eric at least admits this. We love a comfortable lifestyle and appreciate not having the burdens of home ownership. That said, I'm not sure I want to pay someone else's mortgage for the rest of my life. To me, a home represents a solid asset to invest in, but I wonder if we should focus more on paying down debt, saving for retirement, and maintaining our fun lifestyle. How should we prioritize? Okay, let's prioritize for you. Usually I ask you to do this. By the way, my Apple Watch just told me to stand up. All right, hold on. I'm going to move the microphone. Standing. Uh-oh. If I stand up, I lose my headphones. That's not going to work. Oh, brother. Okay, let's do the prioritization. Number one, I really am trying to figure out what is, you have to figure out, rather, how much money that you are spending. I think that's real. And then I want to make sure that you have enough money that is in the bank, okay? 6 to 12 months of your living expenses. That's number one. Number two, stop doing the 529. The $75 a month that you're putting into the 529, use it to pay down your student loan debt. Use every available dollar to pay that student loan debt down. I wasn't sure whether you guys said you have a retirement account, but I hope with $215,000 you have a retirement account. My advice is your wife should not go and start her own business before you have actually have the emergency reserve fund funded, 6 to 12 months of living expenses. Number two, you have whittled down your student loan debt. You didn't say how much you have, but I would really want that down to a reasonable level. And number three, she got to have like a real business plan. And really figure out, is this just a hobby? Is this a business? What is she doing here? This, to me, is a recipe for disaster if you don't do this the right way. And so very methodically, emergency reserve, pay down debt, retirement planning. The big three before the new business. Okay, you're listening to Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. That is our email address, and you can always go to the website, jillonmoney.com. You find lots of great things, resources, blogs, all this great radio, podcasts. Go there, jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back. You're back. It's Jill on Money. We are broadcasting live from the Capital One studios here in New York. And if you've got a financial question, we would love to hear from you. Our email address is askjill at jillonmoney.com. Deborah writes, my husband and I are approaching retirement within 5 years. We've got no debt other than our home. Good. Gross income is $190,000. We've invested well for retirement. Our query, by the way, I love the word query. Our query is that we have about $4,500 per month left over from our monthly salaries. I say pay down the house, which puts us mortgage-free at retirement. He says pay the regular amount on the mortgage, put the rest in savings. We have 20 grand in readily available funds. What are your thoughts? Okay, one question. Deborah, what's the rate on the mortgage? That's a biggie. And if you have 20 grand in funds that are available and you've got 5 years to retirement, maybe you'd want to beef that up a little bit. Like, I agree, you could probably have a little bit more before retirement. But if you've done all of your retirement planning and it says that 5 years works for you, and you've got an adequate amount of money that is in your emergency reserve / savings. I mean, I do believe that as you get towards retirement, in retirement, you'd want 1 year of your living expenses in the bank. And so I wonder if you're going to do maybe a little bit of both. Maybe with $20,000, that's fine. But, maybe if you put in a little bit more into your savings, maybe you split the difference. And again, it depends what the mortgage amount is, and it depends on what the mortgage rate is. But essentially, having that liquidity is a really nice thing. I kind of need a few more numbers to help you, but my general sense is please try to be careful not to use up all that extra cash. You may want it later. Sound good? There's a question from Trevor about going back to school to get a master's. After reading your book, I'm nervous. And he says, but I'm concerned that putting it off may hamper my future earnings. I'm 25. It's now or never. How can I be sure that my emergency and retirement are all appropriate? You know what, Trevor? Give us a holler. Let's get Trevor on the air. I want to talk to him about this. I think graduate degrees are really, really dangerous. So I need more information, Trevor. All right, you got a whole nother hour of Jill on Money just around the corner. During the break, hop onto the website, jillonmoney.com, and you, like Trevor, can buy my book, The Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money, 13 Ways to Right Your Financial Wrongs. We'll be right back.
It's the weekend, and that can only mean one thing. You're listening to Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
All righty. Welcome to the program. You got your heads on straight, ready to rock and roll. We are so delighted you are joining us for the program that takes the mystery out of your financial life. Isn't that great? I'm Jill Schlesinger. Mark Talercio is running everything, including my life. He's the official executive producer of the program. And maybe another title, the Grand Master of my life or something like that. The wizard, the man behind the curtain, the one who makes sure I do everything I'm supposed to do. Everybody needs a partner like Mark. Whew, fantastic. Do you think that we act like daytime spouses? We don't really. We're not like that. But we do talk a lot and text a lot. Anyway, if you've got a financial question, please do let us know. You can just email us. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Oh, I forgot to say that we are broadcasting live from the Policy Genius studios. Policy Genius is the easy way to compare and buy insurance. You can go to policygenius.com. And don't worry, even if you've missed Life Insurance Awareness Month, which was September, every month is Life Insurance Awareness Month here at the Jill on Money program, so go check out Policy Genius. All right, today we have a really interesting guest, especially as we come into the end of the year and people start thinking about their gifting. His name is Henry Timms, and Lincoln Center in New York City actually just named him earlier this year the 11th president and CEO. He started his career in Great Britain. You'll notice the cool accent. And here he talks about his tenure at the 92nd Street Y, which really became a cultural hub in New York. So here is our interview with Henry Timms. So for those of you listening and you're not in the New York metropolitan area, the 92nd Street Y is a Y. It is a YMH.
Young Men's
right?
Hebrew Association, yeah.
And there is a preschool there, and there are a senior program, and you walk in there, it feels like a real Y, like with all that kind of programming. In addition, there were all these really cool programs of speakers and interviews, and I remember the first time I actually got asked about doing an event there, I was so very like there was like this moment where I could call my mother and she's like, oh my God, the 92nd Street Y, like you made it. I had a very good time doing it.
Oh, that's great.
So what did you learn there? Because, essentially one part of your book discusses the difference between old power and new power. And I kind of feel like 92nd Street Y is all about old power.
Right.
Am I wrong?
No, I think that largely that's right. So if you think about an organization like the 92nd Street Y, so for 145 years, it has experts who create programs, and those programs are presented and they're essentially consumed by the audiences. So you'll come and hear the best economists in the world, or you'll come and hear a lecture about philanthropy, or you'll come to our nursery school. And so it's very much a model which looks familiar in the 20th century. And that's what we classify as kind of an old power model, right? Which is kind of top down, and we present things and we curate things and people absorb them. And it's terrific. Like there's nothing, just from the start, the book doesn't argue that old power is bad and new power is good. It's just a different way of thinking about how you influence the world. So I'll give you an example. We have at the Y the best poetry series in the country. The best poets read on our stage and have for decades. You will have, if you go there, you will hear the very best voices in America time and time and time again. That couldn't be more important than ever. And audiences for that kind of event are surging. So very important to sustain that. But it's also important not just to rest on the model of the 20th century and keep doing that. There are very few sectors, I would argue, who have relied entirely on their 20th century model and are still really thriving. So that's where new power comes in. So new power is this idea that alongside the way we used to think about how we influence change, we need to think about how you engage people on their terms, not yours. So you need to work out how you can create programs and ideas that create the space for people who now expect to participate to come in and start to participate in ways that you might not expect. So I'll give you an example from the Y. The Y for 145 years has believed in community and generosity and philanthropy. And we have lots of programs. Bill Gates would come and talk about his philanthropy, and Richard Branson. All these people would come and talk about how they were philanthropists in an old power model. But we created a new power model, which is we created something called Giving Tuesday. So
hold on, let's just not bury that lead. You are the guy behind Giving Tuesday.
Right. Well, we were the team of people.
All right, hold on
Giving
a second.
Tuesday.
Hold on. Let me give you some nice shower something on you.
But
that's that. All right, so you were part of the team.
Yeah, good.
And you have this idea of philanthropy.
Yeah.
It's important to the 92nd Street Y. Tell the listeners, how did this idea come to fruition? What happened that created this idea?
So I think it was very much that we were thinking about how we could create new models for our work, right? So the idea was, if you think about the Y, it's a community center, right? People come together as a community. So the question then is, how do you create community in a digital age? With people connecting online, how do you create a different type of community? So the idea was, we knew about Black Friday and Cyber Monday, which had grown, Cyber Monday in particular had grown supercharged by the internet, which allowed retailers everywhere to collaborate and put deals on sale. And we all remember those, the pictures of people lining up outside the stores fighting each other to get TVs.
Yes, right? or Furbies or whatever they were doing.
Did you get a Furby ever?
No.
No, very wise. So we were thinking about that, and we were thinking, all right, this is supposed to be the giving season. That's what we talk about. But these aren't stories about giving. These are stories about consumption. So could we add a Giving Tuesday after Black Friday and Cyber Monday? Could we add a Giving Tuesday? And so if you'd thought about that project in an old power way, you would say, let's call it the 92nd Street Y's Giving Tuesday, right? We would put our logo in it.
Right.
We would make sure that everyone gave us credit for that project if they took part.
Right.
And we'd probably work out some clever way to charge people $100 each.
Right.
That's how you'd think about it from an old power perspective. But we didn't. To the great credit of the board of directors at the Y, they really invested in some new thinking, and they said, let's do this in a new power way. So the new power way of thinking about something like Giving Tuesday was, we didn't brand it at all. So lots of people don't know that we created it.
They will now.
Well, they will now, right? Well, and it didn't really matter. What we wanted to do with that was create something that people could grab and then turn into a project that became more interesting. So what happened with Giving Tuesday that was so fascinating was, from the very beginning, people would grab bits of it and turning it into something more important. So in Baltimore, in the first year, Giving Tuesday's 7 years old now. So
what year
2012.
2012.
In the first year of Giving Tuesday, Baltimore grabbed Giving Tuesday. And they said, we're not going to call it Giving Tuesday. We're going to call it Be More Gives More. Baltimore Gives More. And we're going to prove that we're the most generous city in America, right? Lovely idea.
Yeah.
They brought the whole community together and they raised over $5 million for local causes in the first year. And in the old power world, if someone took your brand, changed Giving Tuesday into Be More Gives More, you'd call them up and sue them, right? You'd say cease and desist. But of course, in the new power world, this is exactly what we're wanting to see. We're seeing people grab this and take it somewhere new. And in the spirit of what the 92nd Street Y stands for. So cut forward 7 years, Giving Tuesday has now raised over $1 billion online, just online in the US. Average gift size of about $100. And Giving Tuesday has spread to 100 countries around the world.
Okay, we'll get back to Henry Timms in just a minute. Hey, during the break, why don't you go to our website, JillOnMoney.com. There you can sign up for our free weekly newsletter. Fantastic, it's free. Just go, JillOnMoney.com. While you're there, bookmark it. You want to go back. You'll see. We'll be right back.
Do I invest here? Should I put my money there? Jill Schlesinger can help you. Back to Jill on Money.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. And we always love to hear from you. For those of you who just were bright enough to go onto the website during the break and bookmark the site, guess what else? Just because it's bookmarked, now you can do some more stuff there. You can always hit contact. It's in the upper right-hand corner. And there you'll be able to contact us directly just from the website while you're doing all your other fun stuff there. So we're going to get back to our interview with Henry Timms in just a minute. In addition to being the president and CEO of Lincoln Center, he was formerly the president at the 92nd Street Y. He's also an author. The book is called New Power, How Power Works in Our Hyperconnected World and How to Make It Work for You. So here's more of our interview with Henry Timms. So you are the 11th person to hold the position of president and CEO of Lincoln Center. You're walking into this organization that is clearly having some issues. How would you describe, just using some of the language of the book, the old power values that might be within Lincoln Center versus the new power values that you think would have to be adopted to make the next 10 years the best 10 years?
So I think that's exactly the right question. And on one side of it, think about Lincoln Center. If you think about the original vision for Lincoln Center, so back in the 60 years, it's 60 years old now, just about to hit 60. The original vision was at the height of the Cold War, right? So if you can think about what Lincoln Center began as, it began in some senses as kind of this exhibition of democracy, right? It was this idea that Lincoln Center, the Rockefeller vision for Lincoln Center was, you had both this excellence, right? You believed in the very best of the performing arts. And I would certainly say that one of the things which is most important about Lincoln Center is you have on that campus some of the most ambitious, the most learned, the most rigorous creators and performers in the world.
Can you just tick off the organizations underneath the Lincoln Center umbrella for those listening?
Yeah, so there are a lot of them. So you have the Met Opera, you have the Philharmonic, you have the ballet, you have the Chamber Music Society, you have Jazz at Lincoln Center, you have the New York Library for the Performing Arts, you have Lincoln Center itself. You have the Juilliard. You have the School of American Ballet, and the whole vision of the old original vision of Lincoln Center was that all of these organizations would be close together for a reason, right? The reason they would be close together is because it would be a force multiplier. That you would have this moment where you'd have this kind of laboratory where everything would come together. And so the second thing, I think, if you think about the original founding principles of Lincoln Center, which remain key priorities. The first, I think, is this idea around excellence, around the very best. And that could not be more important, particularly in a world awash with so much data and information and nonsense that actually people are desperately to seek out the very best. But the other part of the original vision of Lincoln Center, which I think couldn't be more relevant today, is about breadth. it wasn't just about the best, it was about the most. It was about how could you get the arts to as many people as possible. And that's where I think kind of the New Power world comes in. So if you think about the New Power world, what's so interesting about New Power is we've never had more filmmakers than we do now. We've never had more poets. We've never had more composers. We've never had more singers. We've never had more dancers. There's an amazing world emerging, particularly via social media, of people who are performing in new ways. Mm-hmm. So that's a really interesting question for any institution, which is what do we do with that? What do we do about this generation of people who expect to participate, who want to engage in meaningful ways with the arts? What is the role of something like Lincoln Center to connect with them on their terms, not necessarily on ours? So that, I think, as you think about kind of framing questions for the future, one of the questions for Lincoln Center, I think, is what do we do with this huge supply side we now have?
And you're walking into an organization that has existing people who are there. Some of them might not be thrilled in this moment. Transitions are hard. How do you think about leadership in the New Power, false prophet dichotomy?
So I think one of the things that works well from a New Power perspective, if you think about you're trying to create collaboration is essentially the New Power skill, right? Mm-hmm. So the old power leader, you have the superstar leader who takes up a lot of space and is essentially revered, and it becomes all about them and their own agency. That isn't, I think, the way that you build terrific teams in a New Power way, and especially not the way you build terrific movements. If you're trying to get more people engaged in things that matter, one of the ways to do that is to be more collaborative, I think, to be less about taking up space yourself and more about trying to create the space for others. So much of the job, I think, that the way I hope I've approached the Y, and certainly I intend to approach Lincoln Center, is to set a tone of collaboration, to very much be about building alliances and partnerships with people who are so minded, because we as a sector, by which I mean the arts sector, it's very easy to fall into this habit of everyone being very separate, right? We all have our own projects and we all have the things that we care about, but we all also share a core mission, right? There is an argument that the arts, in a world which technology has made us feel so dislocated, so disconnected, the arts are perhaps the most human expression. It's the way we understand ourselves. It's the way we understand each other, right? Before there were countries or languages or finances or banks, there were artists, right? The very first testaments of man were how we expressed ourselves. And so I think one of the big challenges and huge opportunities for all of us in the arts is to make a more cohesive argument around not just what we're for, which is the arts are good for you and they make you better at maths and all those arguments we know, but also what we're against, right? And the arts do stand against something. They stand against a world where we feel forced apart. They stand against a world where we feel empty. They stand against a world where we feel like we don't understand other people and we're all backing into our corners. The arts at their best bridge those divides, and they help us find ourselves and each other. And so I'm really very focused on that set of arguments.
And that idea that you laid out in the book about made to stick versus made to spread, that I think that spreading that sort of humanity is core to the mission. So my next thought when I hear you talk like that is I say, yeah, you go to the opera, you go to the ballet, and you see a lot of alticacas. You know what I mean? You know that word from 10 years in New York, right?
I do, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm well-versed.
And so how do we bring young people in? I mean, honestly, you go to the Metropolitan Opera, it literally feels like, well, okay, we are all 8 minutes away from being in the ICU with all these people. So how do we bring younger people in?
Well, so I think we should resist that stereotype, because I actually don't think the data backs it up. I think what you see is lots of audiences of different ages on campus.
Good to know.
And B, I think one of the things I think you can look around campus and see, which is most impressive, is the way in which people are finding ways to reconnect people with the arts in interesting ways. So my colleague Deborah Border at the Philharmonic has done a terrific series called Project 19, which is 19 commissions from female composers to mark the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. And you look at the audiences who are attracted to events like that, and you're seeing people who are feeling very much that this is speaking to them and speaking to the moment. And again, one thing I think the arts do so well is they help us understand things when we're feeling like we need navigation. Certainly the thing I want to champion is a lot more of those moments.
You know, it's interesting because I think sometimes we have this problem with network television, that you want to try to bring people and say, hey, we offer something different, right? We have pretty much the same demo as Lincoln Center. So let's just say yes, it's not 100% and there may be younger people, right? But we kind of know our core audience. the problem that seems to present itself is for us when we kind of veer off and do slightly different kind of programming, it pisses off the old constituents, and it doesn't necessarily bring in enough new ones to make it worth it. So I sort of thinking to myself, because I went, our niece took me to like the Prototype Festival, and you see these new operas, and like these are so far from what you might see at the Metropolitan Opera, but they brought out a lot of different kinds of people that maybe I never would have thought would be the kind of people who'd flow into Lincoln Center. How do you marry these two worlds? And I don't know, you want to respect the tradition, but also get them on the next pathway forward.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think a lot of the right questions are around how you invite people in.
Right.
And then how you reach out. Again, there's a myth around the arts, which I think we need to resist a bit, which is that the audiences are very standard, where actually the arts speak to everybody.
Okay, when we return, we're going to finish up our interview with Henry Timms, and then we're going to get to your financial questions. If you've got one, send us an email. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
.401ks, IRAs, refinancing, she covers it all. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. And we are delighted that you are taking time out of your very important days to spend some time with us. Thanks a lot. We're talking to Henry Timms. He is a very interesting guy because he started in the nonprofit world. He stayed in the nonprofit world. But in doing so, he's really kind of a marketing guy who I think is pretty adept at figuring out how to talk to different generations. So just as we have this conversation, we finish this up, we refer to Gen Z, and that is those who are age 22 and under. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. Here's the end of our interview with Henry Timms. The other part of the book that is interesting that came up for me is that you describe the post-millennial generation, or Gen Z, as the founders' generation.
Right.
Explain that.
So there's a really interesting survey MTV did where they were talking about the generation who are coming after Gen Z, so the next gen, and what they wanted to be called. The name they liked the most was the founders. And the idea is that it's a generation of people who want to behave as if they're founders, not just followers, right? So they want to behave as if they are in charge of everything. They have lots of things they can do. They have a lot of transparency. They can see into things. They have a lot of agency. This generation of people who have been persuaded by their devices that they are important, that they matter, and that they ought to participate. They want to feel in the workplace not like they're cogs in a machine, but that they have high degrees of agency. It's a real challenge for the workplace because let's say you post a picture to your Facebook group saying, here's me interviewing Henry Timms, right? All of your friends are going to say, hey, that's so great. You're terrific. Everything's wonderful. Like. You get these artificial feedback loops from your friends, which make you feel everything you do is terrific. And that's one of the reasons these platforms work. Mm-hmm. They work because they make everyone feel bought in and validated. The problem is they don't provide accurate feedback. What they do is they
you did a lousy job in that interview.
Yeah, and that's Henry, that's a terrible shirt, and you ought not to wear it. And the answer you gave about this wasn't very clever. You actually don't get accurate feedback from your own social networks typically. So people come into the workplace having been brought up in this world where they've been surrounded by these myths of validation, and then their boss ignores them for a week and says, that really wasn't a terrific report, and that's a really hard feeling for people. So I think one of the big challenges for any sector is you have all these people now who expect to participate. What are you doing with them? Right? Even people listening to this, look at TV right now. 50% of people are having a two-screen experience. So they're looking at TV and they've got a phone in their hand because they want to do more than just download. They want to do something themselves. I'm sure people listening to this will be on their phones doing something else at the same time. So there are all these interesting ways of people to think about participation, which is shifting. So the question for whether it's TV or radio or Lincoln Center, the question is, this generation of people who want to participate, how do you do that in meaningful terms that is not reducing to the lowest common denominator, which takes the kind of ambition that something like Lincoln Center lives on and translates that to a digital age? And that's going to be one of the big challenges, right? Because it's very easy to enter the shallow waters of the internet. It's hard to dive deep.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the big questions institutions like ours need to get right.
You know, one of the things that I think is so powerful about these institutions is something that kind of transcends all the other digital lures that are out there. And that is you turn your phone off and you are immersed.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the documentary about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, RBG.
I watched the start.
And there's a part of it where she's attending the opera.
Yeah.
And I think it's her granddaughter or her daughter who says she goes to the opera because that's the place where she can escape.
Right.
And that's where you can just turn everything off, get sunk in with a story, get sunk in with the music, with the pageantry. You know, it's sort of one of those things where you not only is it moving to be part of it, but to have zero distractions in this day and age.
I really agree.
It's amazing.
It's what the kids call IRL.
Yeah,
right?
in real life.
And the arts are as IRL as it gets, right?
Yeah.
You actually get away. You really do reconnect with. I mean, look, it's weird because obviously much of my career has been trying to think about how you use technology. So I'm not in the kind of Luddite anti-tech zone. But I do think we know that social media is in many ways making us anxious and sad, right? The great myth of our age was all this connectivity will bring us closer together, and it hasn't. It's actually forced us apart.
Yep.
So I think there's a big role for the arts. We have at Lincoln Center something called the White Light Festival, which was launched years ago, and it's an amazing festival of things from around the world that help us understand ourselves. It helps us kind of find that inner light. And that festival's been a great success for years, but in today's world, it feels even more important to have those moments where you try to find that space just to switch off from all the noise, to escape the algorithms just for a little while, right?
So great.
And put yourself in the hands of people who are thinking so carefully about how you get to the heights of humanity. That's really at our very best. That's what the arts do so well.
That is a good place to end. I'll do a little rapid fire. Opera composer, favorite opera composer, go.
Well, I saw the Magic Flute with my son. The Met's done this amazing performance for families.
Yeah.
And I took him, he was 7, and his greatest skill is not sitting still for long periods of time. And he was completely absorbed.
Wow.
It was an absolute gift.
Okay.
So I think that was that, and if you haven't seen it, it's a gift for kids. Like one of the nice things Lincoln Center does so well is these kind of family moments. Mm-hmm. So I think I would give it to
all right
for now.
Philharmonic Ballet, best performance, like most exciting performance that you've seen in like the last year?
So the thing the Phil did recently, which I thought was terrific, was something called Fill the Hall, where they had a concert which was particularly for people who helped New York. So there's a lot of first responders there, policemen, teachers.
Cool.
They opened up to audiences, and they did a really terrific program. And I went into that, and I just thought it really felt like a New York community event. So I think that would be
right.
very, very high on the list.
You want to do ballet? Do not say Swan Lake.
I promise.
Please.
I'd have to say, so my daughter is 5, and she is absolutely convinced she is the greatest ballerina.
Of course she is.
The only problem is it's that one thing any parent knows this. Confidence in children is a terrific thing. Her confidence is sky high in her capacity as a ballerina. She, however, does not share the belief that we have at Lincoln Center that great art requires practice. So she is of the view that she doesn't need to do anything at all over the years on her route to becoming.
We'll see how that works out.
Anyway,
for her.
I took her first full ballet. We went to the Nutcracker, and it was just a joy to behold.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so anyway, so she with no practice at all will be doubtless performing on stage in a decade.
Thanks to Henry Timms for hanging out with us. It was really great to meet him and learn about what he does. If you would like to learn more about what we do, just send us an email. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. And don't forget, when you go to JillOnMoney.com, you can buy my book, The Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money, 13 Ways to Right Your Financial Wrongs. We'll be right back.
If you've missed any part of a show or want to check out a past show, go to JillOnMoney.com for more great personal finance content.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. Here's a question that is interesting. It catches one's breath when you have somebody who is so used to saving who asks this. How much money should one put aside each month from Social Security before paying bills? It's like, I've got to keep saving. So I don't know. I need more details, but I think that there's a group of people who've been very good savers who are somewhat freaked out when they retire and they're so used to saving they don't know what to do. So, as we've talked about every single show, I think, it's important to have an emergency reserve fund. So if you have extra money from Social Security beyond your daily living expenses, your monthly, your weekly, daily, weekly, monthly, then sure you can save. But what is really important is that to understand your expenses, know how much of Social Security has to go towards those expenses, and then if you have a little money left over, sure, why not? You can save a little. Emily writes, love your weekly newsletters. Mark, how about that? Mark really puts the newsletter together, let's be honest. He does all the hard work here. I listened to your podcast today, and it saved me from deciding to sell stocks. This is one of these days in August when the market was tanking. I'm part-time retired. I feel very happy about that. That was remember we did a little, while I was on vacation, I did that. That was under a blanket into my iPhone. Sounded pretty good, huh? My dogs were crawling all over me. Anyway, thank gosh, Emily did not sell. Emily's part-time retired, 45% in stocks, some bonds, REITs, international. I've got no investment. I got burned real badly by a money manager who invested my IRA and Roth funds in international funds when the U.S. stock market was strong. In 1 year's time, I lost over $26,000. My advice to anyone, do not let crooks manage your money. Okay, wait a second. I'll get on to that. I want to get back to the crook thing. Emily says, do your own research and invest yourself. Oh, and these money managers, they get a 1% fee on my account for doing a bad job and losing money. They're rewarded for their bad behavior. A lesson learned the hard way. I'll never be the fool again. And let my investment firm's financial representative talk me into having my money managed. Right now, my husband and I do not have a financial representative. They're not in it for our best interest. They push what the firm wants them to push, just managing all of our money. One is a fool once. Shame on you for being a fool twice, Emily. Okay. They're not necessarily crooks. I just want to go back to that. Sometimes people, when they invest with an advisor, you have to kind of buy into the philosophy, all right? Maybe these folks were deep value investors, and maybe it's true, U.S. stocks have outperformed, but maybe in the next 10 years, international will outperform. And maybe it was all part of a diversified portfolio. I don't want to throw these dudes under the bus just yet, but what I do want to point out is that you have so many options when you are looking ahead at your investments. And they are everything from run your own money and use index funds, and you can do that at places like Vanguard. You can do that at Charles Schwab. You can do that at T. Rowe Price, at TD Ameritrade, at Fidelity. You can do that yourself. Just go to a place that offers a huge menu of index funds. Piece of cake. No loads, meaning no commissions. The next step, you could use a robo or an online investment platform. What are those? That's basically you go through a risk assessment questionnaire, and then you are able to have an algorithm, a math equation, invest the money for you. Where can you do that? Betterment, that's one. Wealthfront. Vanguard has a service called Vanguard Personal Service Advisor. Schwab has a service called Schwab Intelligent Portfolio. I don't know if Fidelity has that. Mark, does Fidelity have a robo or not? I don't think so either. It's interesting. So that's your next intermediate step. Now, by the way, if you're just doing it yourself with index funds, you're going to pay, I'm going to guess, 0.1%, 0.10%. That's about what you're going to pay total, maybe less. If you hire one of these robos, you're going to pay anywhere from, I don't know, up to 0.3%. Then some of them have a little bit more than just the investment algorithm. They give you access to a certified financial planner or an advisor. And sometimes those are up to, say, 0.5%. And then you can go full on investment advisor. And yes, it may cost you 1%, but maybe they're doing something more for you. Maybe they're doing overall financial planning, but that's sort of your menu of options. So those are your choices. I don't know. I don't want to say they're a crook. Let me just do a quick one before we head to the break. This is from Ahana, who says, I love your podcast. You're articulate, and I love your thoughtful, intelligent questions you put to your guests on the show. Thank you. I live and work in the U.S. on a work visa. I'm a citizen of India. I don't know if I'm going to permanently live here. What are investment options for people like me? If I contribute to a 401k, what happens if I don't live here? What happens is you then have to move the money out and you have to pay a big tax bill. And if you're moving to India, it would be India that imposes the tax on the money you pull out. So you should check with someone in India or, just to get an idea of what would happen if. So that's the story. Okay. You're listening to Jill on Money. And if you would like to ask us a question, just send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back. You're back. It's Jill on Money. Before we close down the show for the weekend, we want to thank you for listening and remind you that we are broadcasting live from the Policy Genius Studios. Policy Genius is the easy way to compare and buy insurance. Just go to policygenius.com. This is a note from Nettie, who is planning her estate. She says, I may need a fiduciary in my area to oversee things. Can you recommend a trustworthy person, even if they're not from the area? I'm 76 years old. I'm getting ready to retire. Should I discontinue reinvesting my dividend? Take them now. I love your show. I have your book. Thanks in advance. Okay, so if you're planning your estate, I presume you're working with an attorney, a qualified trust and estate attorney. That's what I'm hoping for. And I'm guessing that that's a good thing. Maybe that person might know someone in your area who can help you. But regardless, we'll send you the name of somebody. And the question about discontinuing reinvesting dividends has everything to do with other stuff going on in your financial life. So we really need to know a little bit more about whether you need the money or not. If you don't, that's fine. But that decision is more about what else is going on in the portfolio, what income you're receiving, whether or not you need it. Okay, this is from Justin. I have experience as an investor. I own my own business now. I try to stay hands-off. But since I'm a tinkerer, I also try to be as efficient as possible. It's got a bunch of money in different accounts. Taxable accounts, retirement accounts, Roth, some alternative investments, some cash. Okay, main question. Does Betterment, which is an online advisor, put you in an overly diversified portfolio? Would I be better off with 2 or 3 funds that I build in Vanguard, or is the trade-off for them rebalancing worth it? Here's the thing. I think there's a real question about how valuable rebalancing is. If you had, 4 or 5 funds at Vanguard, doing it yourself, and you're comfortable doing it yourself, and I think that's probably all you need. So as long as you're willing to do it and set it and forget it, not tinker too much, then Justin, I think go ahead, do it yourself, and good luck. Okay, that's it. That's the program. Thanks so much for listening. If you have financial questions during the week, don't forget you can give us a holler anytime. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com or hop onto the website, jillonmoney.com. And we would be delighted to hear from you. Just click on the contact button. All right, have a great week. We'll see you next time.